Mouth breather. A number of years ago, I ran the film room at a small science fiction convention. It was actually a big science fiction convention that had intentionally fissioned off into a couple of others, and then its original group was shrunk down to very little. And one of the features that they got rid of was their film room, and then they eventually agreed to bring the film room back, but they had no budget at all for it, and just kind of agreed to have a film room only because I and a couple of other friends agreed to run it, and they gave us almost no money to do so. So almost all of the movies that were shown at the film room were public domain movies, which one of the friends in question had found on the internet and just downloaded to burn to DVD discs. And so we had this extremely low budget. I think we actually paid the licensing fees for 2 movies that were not public domain. And we put those in like primetime slots on the 2 days of the convention, but, one on each or whatever. But the vast majority of the movies were public domain, and she got me a huge library of them, and I watched most of the ones that she provided, and then selected the ones that I thought were halfway decent enough to be worth putting up in the film room schedule. I got way more than I actually needed, and decided which ones were actually worth the effort. So, one of the reasons why I went to the effort of watching them was to evaluate them that way, and also to write blurbs describing them in the program guide of the convention. Anyway, so the reason I bring this up is this experience gave me a familiarity with public domain movies. Fast forward all these years to, I think it was last year that I started, because I had, last year being 2020, I meant 2019, which is now the year before technically. Somewhere in there, I started watching a TV network called Comet, which I'm not intentionally advertising them. They're a very mixed bag in terms of quality, which is part of the point I'm getting to, so I'm not recommending or disrecommending them, but entirely for informational purposes, I point out that they exist. They have their website, comettv.com, and they stream for free, so everything that they broadcast to television, they also broadcast to the internet, and I'm not sure what exactly is going on with commercials. I don't see very many commercials when I watch Comet, but that might be due to mysterious forces that I don't fully understand, and that's all I'm going to say about that. So they might or might not have advertisements if you watch them online, but they definitely have advertisements if you watch them on the TV. Anyway, I've watched a number of shows on Comet. They do show several very good programs that I invest my time in and voluntarily sit through ads for if necessary. And then they also have a lot of random crap, and the reason I brought up the movie room experience is that some of the things that they broadcast are big budget movies from not big budget, but modest budget movies from the 80s and 90s and whatnot that they presumably paid a licensing fee. I'm guessing that they pick movies that they can get for cheap. But in other cases, some of the movies that they show are public domain, which means that unless they were very stupid and allowed an agent to talk them into paying for something which was possible to find for free, I'm assuming that they intentionally found these public domain movies and broadcast them for free and trick people into quote-unquote paying for them by watching ads. I've had that whole rant before as one of my other videos, so we won't go there. They will take things that are not quality just because they are either cheap or free. That's the whole point I was getting at, and this is all a unnecessarily long preamble to the subject that I really wanted to talk about, which is one particular thing that I saw on them. So the other day, literally like 2 days ago, they were doing the Earthsea miniseries, which is a basically two movie-length television episodes, so like two movies back-to-back that are the sequel to each other, a single story. So that was created by the Sci-Fi Television Network, which is kind of infamous for doing kind of crappy stuff. Crappy is perhaps too strong of a word. Stuff for an undiscriminating audience would be a more charitable way to put it, because it's not that this kind of stuff is bad necessarily, although in this case, we'll get to that. The idea is that they will put somewhat minimal effort into creating something that scratches a fairly superficial itch. So it's not that it's necessarily bad, it's that it doesn't have to try super hard because the people that it's trying to please are not super picky. Which I don't think that deserves to be shamed as this is bad, necessarily. I have enjoyed... I'm a little bit on the lowbrow side in my tastes. I have enjoyed many things that the culture tells me are bad because, hey, spaceships and explosions. I don't need and cheesecake, lots of cheesecake. It doesn't take a lot to satisfy me. I'm very easily entertained by things that are just kind of cool and fun and don't have a lot of depth to them. But I don't like having my intelligence insulted, so kind of, one of the things that I'm really sensitive to is when the dialogue is really very creaky and kind of treats the audience like they're an idiot and explains things that should be very obvious, although that's a super subjective thing. There are lots of stories that go the opposite way and don't explain things because they assume you will find them obvious, and then even if they should be, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are. So I miss stuff that way sometimes. So I'm not as smart as I wish I was, or tend to automatically assume I am. But anyway, the point I'm getting at. So I watched this Earthsea thing, and I kind of knew going in that if it was on the Comet Network, there was a fairly high chance it wasn't going to be great. But it disappointed me more than their stuff usually does. Most of the time, if I read the description of a thing, I can know I can know whether I'm interested or not without having to actually watch it. A mega shark movie. That's actually the name of the movie, is Mega Shark versus various other things. Those movies, I don't need to see them. I know that they're not going to be my thing. They might be good if you're into that sort of thing, but I am not. So, and probably they're not good even then. But anyway, I ramble on about all this to get to the point that I was very disappointed in the Earthsea thing, and I actually ended up, after wasting almost 2 full hours, I got to about 20 minutes before the end of the first movie and decided that I could not put off other things that I needed to do longer, and so I checked out of the movie not because it was unbearable, but because it wasn't worth my time at the specific moment when it was being broadcast. I hate the fact that we're confined to broadcast schedules, especially with streaming things, because, well, anyway, I won't go off on that whole tangent. That's a video in itself. So the point of bringing this all up is I watched Earthsea, and I had previously tried to read the first Earthsea novel, and so I was kind of coming into it with a pre-existing impression. I did not read all the way through the novel. I found it to be very boring, and I gave up on it. So when I watched this movie, which ultimately kind of led to the same conclusion of me deciding it wasn't worth my time and giving up, I did a little bit of research after the fact, looked up a plot summary and found out that probably the second movie would have been slightly better than the first, and I maybe should have stuck with it, but also confirming that I'm not the only person who has said it's not very good. Looking into it like that kind of gave me a different impression and made me want to actually do like a review on the movie, which I started recording this video intending that it would be the review. I've meant for some time to do kind of reviews of bad science fiction and so forth as a vehicle of content on my show. And, my show has no audience as I record this. My most popular video has gotten like 15 views, and like 5 of them were from me. So I want to do reviews of movies and sci-fi and TV series, whatnot. That's kind of the style of content that is most interesting to me in YouTube and most made me want to pick up a webcam and have my own channel. So I may at some point do that, but I cannot in good conscience do a proper review of Earthsea, despite the fact that I started trying to do exactly that before deciding that this was taking me too long. I have not read all the way through the books. I have not seen all the way through the TV series. I apparently cannot get it on DVD by any means. I tried, and it is apparently not available, and Comet doesn't seem to be broadcasting it again anytime soon, so who knows when I will get to actually see the rest of it and find out if it was any good. The little slice that I did see makes particularly amusing the fact that one of the names in the credits at the opening is of an actress named Amanda Tapping, who is on the TV show Stargate SG-1, which I am currently rewatching my DVDs of. SG-1 also broadcasts on Comet, and that kind of got me to unpack my DVDs from storage and start watching them again. The credits listed a bunch of other names of this guy plays the main hero, this guy plays the main female character, this guy's the villain, this guy's the wizard mentor type character, this guy's the other wizard mentor type character from later on, etc., etc., etc. And then, like, the last name in the credits was Amanda Tapping, and I'm like, oh, so the whole time that I'm watching this film, I'm watching for her, and, like, at the 90-minute mark, she finally shows up and says one line of dialogue and then disappears, and the story is structured in such a way that I have no reason to expect that she will come back. So she may or may not come back, but it's really funny to think of the idea that they hired a moderately famous actress to say one line of dialogue. That's the only point I'm getting at by bringing that aspect up. So there are things that I could say about Earthsea based on my very small exposure to it, and I was tempted to say them, which is why I picked up this camera and started recording, but it kind of, as often happens with these unscripted rambles of mine, it kind of went in another direction, so I will not drag this out any further by trying to get to my original point, and just, this could be part 1 of 2, and I'll decide later whether it is, but it would be very hard for me to say much of anything intelligent about the work based on my very fractional experience of it. I could give my because I'm of the opinion that an ignorant assessment is not necessarily a bad one. If you only take 5 minutes figuring out whether a thing is good or bad, the resulting opinion is valid, even if you could have come up with a different opinion by putting more time into it. You are within your rights to make that determination that it isn't worth trying harder. It's kind of sad, but we are all finite beings on this planet, so we have the right to decide that we just can't be bothered to invest more than that, even if it's kind of a bit of a mild tragedy when things are dismissed too hastily. In an ideal world, you would always give something the time necessary to properly give it its due. And as I've gotten older, one of my favorite types of entertainment content has proven to be deep analysis of pre-existing entertainment content. It works for it in itself, and that's kind of what I'm doing or trying to do here. So it's, there is value in a sort of hasty or ill-considered review, and so I might eventually do one, but clearly it's not going to be today.